5 years held captive by the Taliban. Now we're getting harrowing details about Army Sergeant Bowe Bergdahl's apparent physical abuse and psychological trauma. New claims by a senior U.S. official that he was beaten, caged, and locked away in a dark room for weeks at a time. This alleged treatment forming part of the reason the White House exchanged 5 Taliban commanders for his return. Secretary of State John Kerry today defending sending those detainees to the Middle Eastern country of Qatar.
Well, they're not the only ones keeping an eye on them.
The U.S. is going to be monitoring them?
I'm just telling you they're not the only ones keeping an eye on them, and we have confidence in those requirements. And if they're violated, then we have the ability to be able to do things.
What kind of things?
I am not, Elise, I'm not telling you that they don't have some ability at some point to go back and get involved. But they also have an ability to get killed doing that.
Today on Capitol Hill, the Obama administration will be forced to defend the decision before members of the House. And believe it or not, a sticking point could be the Taliban's own version of events. Nick Robertson is joining me now, senior international correspondent, along with Thomas Joscelyn, senior fellow and Foundation for Defense of Democracies and senior editor at the Long War Journal. Nick, to you first on this. You've been in touch with Taliban sources and have some accounts that don't quite jive with what Bergdahl himself has reportedly told his superiors. So what are the Taliban saying now?
Yeah, Randy, this is a Taliban source who has some knowledge of some of Bergdahl's captivity, not all of it. And this is also a source who's provided accurate information in the past about Western prisoners held by the same Haqqani network of the Taliban in the Pakistan-Afghan border region. What he is saying is that initially Bergdahl was kept prisoner in a house that didn't have tight security, that he was able to run away, that he was on the run for 3 whole days. The only reason he was captured is because the Taliban controlled the whole area, that he had no way to get away, and that's why they retook him and put him in a much more secure location. In that location, they say, Bergdahl then realized that there was no opportunity to escape, that over time he learned the local language Pashto, that he was able to tell the Taliban that he didn't like the food he was being given, that he didn't like the lamb, that he wanted more fruit and veg, and that's what they say they gave him. They say they gave him books, English books, Islamic books to read, but they also say that he stuck to his Christian faith, that he wanted to celebrate Christmas and Easter. He was able to do that. They say that he got some exercise and that he was able to play soccer with the Taliban. So this particular Taliban source paints a picture of close confinement, but one where Bergdahl learns to speak and communicate with his captors. Randy?
Thomas, let me bring you in here because, I mean, there's certainly an inconsistency in the two stories that are taking place here, but you say that how Taliban treats their prisoners may depend on who they are and where they're from.
Right. Well, I think, one of the things that's difficult for us to understand is for them, this is a business transaction. Basically, they were having Bergdahl in custody because they wanted to trade him for top Taliban detainees all along. When he was first taken into custody in 2009, they said that publicly. Basically, we're willing to trade him. So they weren't looking to really torture him or kill him. They wanted to actually extract value for having him in custody. Now, the picture that's emerging, this is still fluid, it's still early on, there's a lot we don't know. But what that picture says is basically, depending on how he acted or behaved, there were incentives or disincentives for him to actually, basically perform better or not so, basically get put in a cage if he acts out, or he can actually, get benefits if he doesn't act out.
And Nick, I mean, when we think of a Taliban prisoner, we don't think of somebody who can basically choose the items on their menu, I mean, and play soccer. Have you ever heard of this before?
No. I mean, we don't know what really goes on inside a place where the Taliban are holding prisoners. We absolutely don't. Certainly the idea that they wouldn't want to kill him off because he's a bargaining chip is clearly what the game was all about here. The fact that he learned to survive like so many prisoners do by learning to communicate with their captors, trying to find the ones among them who are perhaps a softer touch, perhaps might allow them to give them that slightly better food, these sorts of things. That is absolutely typical for somebody who's being a prisoner, to try to communicate, to try to get things a little bit on their terms, even if it's minute compared to not having their freedom at all. So it's not entirely out of the ordinary that it would potentially play out this way, but we don't know. We really don't know. Sergeant Bergdahl, when he tells his story, that's when we'll perhaps get the whole picture, if you will.
Right, but until then, I mean, Tom, who should we believe? I mean, you have the Taliban saying he ate really well, he got to play soccer, you know, life was pretty good for him, and then you have him telling his superiors he was basically treated like a caged animal at times.
I'd like the facts shake out more. You know, I think probably, you know, a lot of these facts or details, they probably all depend on what he was doing at the time in custody.
All right, Nick Robertson and Tom, appreciate your time, both of you. Thank you.